Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another episode of NASCAR Backmarker Battles, the only NASCAR podcast that really gives a crap about the backmarkers. I am your host of the usual ARCA Racing podcast, Colby Evans, aka Start and Park Car on Twitter, and we have a very big show for you guys today. We are technically reviewing two different races as the Xfinity Cup and Truck Series. We're all at different tracks. And, of course, we have the Cup and Xfinity Series this weekend at New Hampshire. So a big show for you guys today. We're going to let a couple more people file in here as I go through my little dumb intro I go through at the beginning of every show. And we will get right into the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and Cup Series action because we have a lot to talk about. It was a big weekend for the Backmarkers this past weekend. So I cannot wait to talk about it with you guys. You guys know the drill, though. Follow me on social media, Start and Park Car on Twitter. For all ARCA tweets, Backmarker tweets, all that fun crap. Like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that bell for notifications so you guys never miss a podcast when we go live. And, of course, follow theracingexperts.com as they are the official media outlet of this channel. So let's get right into it. It's one of the rare weekends where we have the NASCAR series at two different racetracks. The Truck Series along with the ARCA Series, which we'll talk about on Thursday. We're at Mid-Ohio, the road course in Ohio, as of course. And, of course, Xfinity and Cup at the New Atlanta. I'll admit, I thought Truck and ARCA had the better races. Obviously, the Cup race was fun. Not going to deny that. It was very fun. But I really have to give the edge to Truck and ARCA. I think Mid-Ohio is a great, very underrated road course. And I think Truck and ARCA by barely. I think it was the rain stuff that really kind of sealed it for me. I think Truck ARCA won this weekend versus Xfinity Cup. But I'll admit, New Atlanta really starting to grow on me. I saw a lot of positive comments about it. I know 2022 Atlanta didn't really impress anyone, didn't impress me at all. But we noticed something in the first race this year that we also noticed in this race specifically. The track is really starting to age. And obviously with more age will come with more character. Handling becomes a big problem. I like that. I like when teams really have to get a good setup on the car, good handling setup. It makes the race more interesting because it really shows you which team has really nailed the setup of their car. And I do believe there will be a time where Atlanta will not be wide open anymore, that they will have to break at some point. That could also play into some fun racing, but obviously that'll be years down the line when the pavement ages and ages and ages. Needless to say, though, like I said, we're here to talk about backmarkers. I just wanted to get those initial opinions out of the way. So we start off with the Truck Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts 150 at Mid-Ohio. We had 38 trucks here for 36 spots. Two trucks were going home. Notable absence of this race was actually, surprisingly, last year's winner, which they've had an awful season. It's kind of sad to see the decline of Henderson Motorsports compared from 2022 to 2023. Sorry if you hear some commotion upstairs. My brother just came in with his dog and my mom and dad up there talking to him. So if you hear some commotion, that's what it is. But going back to what I was saying, you hear that? So, so notable by their absence were the 75 of Henderson Motorsports, but we still had 38 trucks. Very rare. We don't usually see DNQs for truck races, much less at road courses. But some of the notable entries we had in this race, Caleb Costner, a part-time ARCA driver who's run his own Costner Motorsports 93 car, he was driving Josh Rayom's 34. Josh Rayom was driving the 33 himself. Landon Lewis was driving the 04 for Roper Racing. Connor Daly, who got released from his IndyCar ride, came over to drive the 41 truck for Nice. Dale Quarterly, driving his own truck under G2G, was in the 46. Ryan Vargas was back in the 30. Connor Jones and the 66 were back again. But Marco Andretti from the IndyCar side, he came over to drive the Spire 7 truck. I believe that was it. And then we had, of course, the regular entries. Oh, Will Rogers was in the 02. Forgot about that. Qualifying was fun. At the end of the day, though, it was also kind of sad. We were cheering for Dale Quarterly to get in the show, obviously. But unfortunately, with Dale Quarterly making the show, it meant that both of the Josh Rayom trucks missed the race. Now, Josh, I pretty much knew the 34 had no shot because, I mean, Caleb's got no road racing experience really whatsoever. Maybe the 33 had a chance, but really just the Rayom trucks just don't have enough power in them. I predicted them as my DNQs last week, and predictably, they weren't quick enough at all. So the first time since last year's fall Talladega race that both Rayom trucks have failed to qualify for a race. And man, it's bad enough. It's bad enough when one truck goes home, but double DNQ, like, God, that's just because you go home with no money. You know, at least if one truck goes home, maybe one truck at least can bring in a good run and a good points day and a good money day. But both trucks go home. Just, God, and it's just the nature of being a low budget team owner. You're going to have those days. Carl Long had it at Daytona. So, you know, obviously it's nothing new, but I feel for Josh Rayom. This has been arguably the toughest year for Rayom Brothers Racing as a whole. And it's a shame. He works hard. But yeah, clearly it's just ever since Mason Massey left the team, it's just kind of they're trying to pick up the scrambles. I mean, the team has been behind all year because of the shop fire. The shop fire at the beginning of the year, which killed a lot of their good trucks and engines, and they've had to run a lot of their older stuff, which they don't want to. So double DNQ there sucks. Really sucks for them. Some of the backmarkers that actually did decent in qualifying. Or mid-pack teams. I would consider Spire and Marco Andretti. You know, they're a mid-pack backmarker cup team. Their truck program is usually pretty good, so I don't really consider them a backmarker, but they were 7th. Will Rogers, probably the best run the 02's kind of had all year in terms of qualifying, 16th. Like I said, for this race, a lot of the backmarkers kind of struggled. Timmy was down in 33rd. Brett Holmes was down in 32nd. Colby Howard didn't even make a qualifying lap. I mean, we'll talk about in a second. It was a really rough day for CR7 Motorsports. Matt Mills was 30th. Dale Quarterly, he managed to qualify 28th, so he actually got a pretty decent qualifying lap. But yeah, for the real kind of the backmarker teams, it just wasn't really a good qualifying session. You got to expect that. Like I said, the road courses are just not their strongest suit. Now, unfortunately, I had to do some family work, some family moving around the house, so I actually missed the start of the truck race. But I was following along with it on Twitter and on MRN Radio, and from the sounds of it, it was absolute chaos for about the first 5 laps. I think they said Jake Garcia spun about 20 times. The 30 truck spun a couple times. Everybody was spinning out, apparently. They started the race on wet weather tires with those weird lights. They have on the trucks to help guide each other. And it was absolute chaos. And then by the time I turned the race back on, they were just about to go to slicks and the sun had come out. So I got to miss all the fun. And by the time I turned the race on, it was pretty much back to a normal Mid-Ohio truck race. And the race was very fun. I will say that I did get a little dumb at the end, like most truck races do. These trucks bury themselves too easily. Obviously, with how low they sit to the ground. So we had a lot of buried trucks. Poor Brett Holmes. I think Brett Holmes got stuck like 3 times in the gravel traps throughout the race. But yeah, I felt bad for Colby Howard. I wanted to talk to them about a brief second. Man, CR7 Motorsports has just had 2 really bad years. Their year last year with Blaine Perkins was pretty bad. Colby Howard is better than this. Colby Howard's a very good driver, not just because he's another fellow Colby, but he actually is a good driver. And I thought this partnership would do good, but man, it's just something about that CR7 team. They're just not clicking. And it makes me wonder if that team will even be back next year because they are struggling. And Jason Kitzmiller is the only reason why that ARCA program is even alive with the 97 car. Jason Kitzmiller is the only reason with the ALL construction sponsorship. So hate to see what happened there. They were out early, 21 laps into a transmission failure. Unfortunately, everybody's old guy favorite, Dale Quarterly, he had to go through the grass to miss someone. And it really screwed up the truck. It screwed up, from what I was told, screwed up the undercarriage, screwed up the radiator. And then eventually, I believe either the truck got stuck in gear or he just flat out blew the transmission by accident and unfortunately was forced to retire, which does suck because based off of how the end of the race was going, I do think that Dale Quarterly easily could have gotten a top 20 finish today. Definitely could easily have seen Dale Quarterly getting a top 20 finish. So that sucked for Dale. We did have Will Rogers. Poor Will Rogers. He actually was running at one point top 15, top 10 in the Young's Motorsports truck, which we rarely see. Which we rarely see. He got just flat out taken out. This was Austin Wayne Self's first truck race in quite a while. And boy, Austin Wayne Self just took him out in the last turn, right into that wall. The 0-2 was completely destroyed. I mean, yeah, those tire barriers are good, but man, do they do a lot of damage. Those tire barriers really screw up those trucks. So unfortunately for them, the 22 was done for the day and the 0-2 was demolished. And with a very profound tweet, Will Rogers basically trashed most of the series, and he's not wrong. You know, I mean, you could easily say Trucks has a lot of guys in the series that are kind of questionable, and do they really belong in the series, and do they really provide anything special? And I don't think Austin Wayne Self really does. There's kind of a reason why he doesn't drive full-time anymore. And even in his first race back, he still makes headlines for all the wrong reasons. So that's kind of funny there. So that knocked a couple more trucks out of the race. Poor Brett Holmes spun like 4 times. The race came down to the end. It was a great finish between Corey Heim, who simply was just dominating. I mean, dominating these road courses and having a really good season as well. He held off to win over Zane Smith. We had some last lap shenanigans. I don't know if it was ever really reported, but Lawless Allen did spin Hailie Deegan again. So I don't know if you guys caught that again. I don't know if they told at the end of the race, but Haley's shifter broke on the last lap of the race. So talk about bad luck. She in her race recap video she does every week, she reported that her apparently shifter broke. So basically she was I don't know if she was stuck in gear or what she could do, but then apparently the 45 took her out. So I don't know if Lawless Allen just loves spinning out Hailie Deegan, but this is like the 20th time it's happened. So how prophetic. I mean, of course, it's the 45 truck that's got to spin her out. So once again, whatever good finish could have came from it for the 13 was gone. The 04 got spun around. And in all of this, somehow Timmy Hill, we're unsponsored, but we came through with it, finished 21st. For this race, the Backmarkers didn't necessarily have really the best showings. I really kind of call them mid-pack teams. There's no real Backmarkers in trucks that had a good run. Marco Andretti, he actually had a pretty decent run at the beginning of the race, but he spun around. Was still able to recover to 19. Timmy Hill, like I said, probably the strongest kind of mid-pack Backmarker truck, but still got a good finish out of it, 21st. Matt Mills, 22nd. Ryan Vargas, 23rd. Spencer Boyd, 25th. Leave it to him to – he may not run the fastest, but he doesn't wreck his trucks. So 25th for Spencer Boyd. Connor Jones managed another DNF, losing his brakes on the last lap. So by technicality, he didn't finish the race, which I find funny. Brett Holmes down in 32nd. Like I said, his full-time tenure. I mean, it has been a pretty rough year for Brett Holmes' first full year in the Truck Series. In terms of DNFs, he's got 3 DNFs. But overall, even when you look at the finishes, they're not very good. Especially the last couple weeks have not been very good, which I hate. Brett Holmes, hardworking guy, the 2020 ARCA champion, one of the best stories in the last 10 years for the ARCA series. But boy, he's having a tough time in the trucks. So overall, I thought the truck race was good. Like I said, the road courses. Do the trucks belong on road courses? Yes. Do they belong at Mid-Ohio? That remains to be seen. I do think there are better road courses on the schedule that might fit the truck series better. VIR, Virginia International Raceway, would be a great facility for the truck series. My personal favorite, Road Atlanta. Road Atlanta would be a perfect place for road course trucks. I just don't feel like Mid-Ohio suits the truck series, if that makes sense. Trucks are good road course racing, but I don't think Mid-Ohio is the place to go. In my opinion, I'd rather go to Road Atlanta. That's just – I love Road Atlanta. It's a very, very fun track. It's one of my favorite road courses to drive on in simulator games. So I would like to just see them go to Road Atlanta, but still not a bad race overall. I gave it a 7 out of 10. One thing I did want to start talking about, as we are now well over halfway through the season in all 3 divisions, was the top 20 bonus. Now, obviously, in the truck series, The top 20 teams and the owner's points and the driver points get a bonus at the end of the year. I know in the Xfinity Series, it's $80,000. At the end of the year, the top 20 in Xfinity and trucks get $80,000. I'm not sure if it's the same amount for Truck Series, so I'm not going to put a number out there because I don't know. But I know it's $80,000 in Xfinity. That was told to me. But for trucks, I don't know the number. But for trucks right now, easily to say that the top 19 trucks have a spot locked up. Right now, it's really kind of a battle from 20th to about 25th. Right now, GMS Racing holds that last coveted 20th spot, the 43 truck, between the 43, 24, 13, 9, 56, and 32. They are separated by 47 points with 9 races to go. Now, note the one Tricon entry who has missed a couple races is ineligible for the bonus since they did not attempt every race. Because you do have to attempt every race to get those bonuses. And they've missed 2. And I don't think the one is running the rest of the season. I do think the one Tricon entry will miss some more races down the line as well. So right now, that would mean the 2 GMS trucks, the 43 and the 24, are holding the last 2 positions, which means the trucks looking in would be the 13 Thor Sport entry, the 9 CR7 entry, and the 56 of Hill. So that'll be a fun battle for sure. Timmy was able to get top 20 last year, I believe, in driver points. I don't know if he got I think he also got top 20 in owners points as well last year. But yeah, look at that. You got the little guys of CR7, Hill, and Brett Holmes taking up against Thor Sport and the GMS trucks. So that'll be a fun battle to continue to watch. Right now, it's about a 15-point gap, but obviously with how mixed these truck races can get, still I would say all of these guys got a logistical chance. For the driver standings, I think they might cut it some slack because not necessarily there are 20 full-time drivers. Looking at the point standings right now, the 56 eligible, I've been told different stories. I've been told since the 56 technically made a practice lap at Texas, they are eligible. But then I've been told by other people that since they didn't start the race, they're not eligible. So I don't know if it's still which way it goes. I know in ARCA, as long as you make a practice lap, it counts. I don't know if it still works like that in the truck series. So hopefully I can get some more confirmation on that. But in terms of full-time driver points, I believe we have, 20? Looking at the points right now, looks like 27 full-time drivers. And right now, those points are the last 2 positions are held as Haley Deegan and Colby Howard. Looking in are Brett Holmes, Dean Thompson, Lawless Allen, and Spencer Boyd. Now, this version, I don't believe a driver has to attempt all 33 races, or 30, that's Xfinity, all 23 races to get the Truck Series bonus. I believe it is just the top 20 finishers in the truck points, driver points. I don't believe it is in the owner points, though. So, more than likely, a part-time driver wouldn't be able to get top 20 points is also what I'm trying to say. Taylor Gray, even though he did miss 3 races, he's got his playoff waiver, so he's still eligible. And same goes for Jake Garcia. It's the drivers who don't have a playoff waiver and just haven't run the whole season. Like Timmy Hill. He's ran 11 of the 14 races, but since he doesn't have a waiver, he's not eligible. So that'll be a fun battle also going forward again, because in the Truck Series, every little dollar does count, of course. So that was the Truck Series at Mid-Ohio. Again, race was good. It wasn't perfect. We did have a couple of stupid moments, but overall, I would say a very solid road course truck race. I will say, though, if the rumors are true about NASCAR going back over the border to Canada again, would not mind seeing the Truck Series return to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I don't think the Truck Series necessarily belongs at Montreal. I don't think that track would fit the Truck Series driving style. I think Bowmanville, or as they call it, Mosport, or Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, whatever you want to call it, fits the Truck Series a lot better. So hopefully we can get that again next year if the rumors are really true that NASCAR is going back to Canada. But anyway, we now transfer into the Xfinity race, the Alsco Uniforms 250 Xfinity race at Atlanta. Obviously, like I said, my admissions before, Atlanta really starting to grow on me. I'm actually starting to really enjoy this track. And with a couple more years of aging, I think this track could really become something special. We had originally 39 cars on the entry list, but the 66 Fincham, literally the day after I did the show last week, MBM Motorsports would unfortunately put out a statement that I think most of us saw coming. Carl Long put out a statement. You could tell this was written by him, basically saying the DNQs are taking such a toll on us. We don't have access to simulators, which they don't. I don't know if their pull-down rig was fixed yet. I know Carl has been having issues with his pull-down rig because CHK has been going to Andy Hillenberg and using their pull-down rig. So, yeah, and all the DNQs, the money loss, it's just built to a point where Carl, they're only going to show up to Xfinity races where they have the guaranteed pay driver and sponsorship, which honestly, I don't blame them. It was coming. It's hard doing these week-to-week programs, knowing the fact that you might not have a chance. And so they withdrew from this weekend. Looking at how qualifying went, I don't think they would have made the show. I think they made the right call to withdraw from this race, which sucks. But he did appear that MBM was going to run some cup races as well. So, and while the payouts aren't necessarily good, they would be guaranteed into the race. So I wouldn't shock me if MBM they plan on running some cup races. I don't know with who. Obviously, Carl just wants to put that statement out there saying we want to run cup races. I'll kind of believe that when I see it as more its line of I would just have them focus on Xfinity efforts. And we'll get to more of that when we get to the preview portion. So that left the remaining 38 entries locked into the show. We did have some interesting entries. We had the 36, which might become another full-time car in the series down the line because they ran the last 3 of the 4 races for DGM. Kyle Weatherman was in the 36. Greg Van Alst from the ARC Series was making his Xfinity Series debut in the 44 for Tommy Joe. Mason Maggio was in the 07. Akinari Ogata returned to the Xfinity Series, driving the 53 for Emmerling Gase. Garrett Smithley was back in his 4 car. Mason Massey was back in the 08 again. Josh Bilicki was back in the 91. Kyle Sieg was back in the 28 after Brent Sherman was in the car last week. And I believe that was it. Everyone else kind of stayed the same. Qualifying results, obviously, this is a track that's kind of all about car, not really about driver. So, unshockingly, the fast cars did well, and the slow guys did, well, the best they could do. Notables that did struggle were Greg Van Alst. Greg Van Alst was 4 seconds off the pole. And I'm like, whoa, what happened to Greg on his lap? And I didn't watch qualifying, and supposedly the car was just so free. And he complained about the car being free the entire race, which unfortunately led to his future crash. But he ran a lap of only 151 miles per hour, which, God, is just, I mean, how bad could that car have been? So that sucks for Greg. But he was in the show, so, that's what matters. I decided to listen to the 44 for the race because I wanted to just see how it went. The plan for them was to just ride around, wait to the end of the race, wait to the final stage, and then see what they could do at that point. So, they race got going green. Unlike last time, we did not crash immediately like we did in the spring. We actually made it 28 laps before our first crash, which even then wasn't that bad. It was just a couple of minor incidents. 44 just appeared to be complaining of free the entire time. And unfortunately, after the stage 1 on lap 64, he was our first accident. Greg Van Alst appeared to get loose, make contact with another car. I don't remember who exactly. I think it was the 08 of Mason Massey. And he got loose, got into the wall with the 08, and the 44 was killed. So unfortunately, in Greg's first start after 62 laps, it went over in literally a blaze of glory because the car was on fire. And I just feel so bad for Greg. I put out a tweet saying how bad I felt for him. I mean, ever since his Daytona win, it has just been completely downhill. Obviously, the personal stuff, the loss in his family, and the ARCA team going under, well, not 100%, but just back to a part-time effort. And all the crashes, it's sad because you want to see a guy like him, a hardworking guy, not a young guy at all anymore, in his 40s. You want to see him succeed. So it's a shame to see him go out. So in the 44, man, the 44 has really been the runt for the Alpha Prime team this season. That sucks because that's like the primary. That was supposed to be the primary car. The 44 was supposed to be the primary car for Alpha Prime this season, and it's ended up being the worst Alpha Prime car. Not because of the drivers that are in it. It's just because of bad luck. All the drivers who have driven the 44 this year have been just fine, but the bad luck in the car. The DNQ with Sage, Sage getting caught out by the rain, and then this issue with Greg, which was none of their faults. It was just bad luck. So, and also for SS Greenlight Racing, you talk about a team that's just fallen from grace, man. I mean, these guys were nearly playoff contenders in 2019, 13th in points with Greg Alding. And look where they are now. I mean, the 07 is not the best. Stefan Parsons is doing the best he can almost every week in that car. That car is so low in points. But thanks to Stefan, he gets the car in the show every week. The 08, ever since Greg Alding left, it's been kind of a mix. They had two. It was the Mason brothers. They weren't brothers, but I just call them the Mason brothers. Mason Maggio in the 07 and Mason Massey in the 08. Poor Mason Maggio. I mean, his race was over from like lap 1. And this was the problem with no practice. The left rear, I should say, was rubbing really badly. And it cut down the left rear tire. So they came in. They didn't pull on the fender. They just changed the tire. Went back out. Had another tire go down. And this time they pulled on the fender, was still rubbing. So this time, since they had cleared the damaged vehicle policy clock, they could go behind the wall and fix it. Sorry, I'm getting just a tad parched here. There we go. So I had to go behind the wall, spend about 10 laps behind the wall, finally comes back out and can finally get his race going again. I mean, his car was just evil. And I tweeted it out. He said it on the radio. His car was just evil. And when you have an evil Xfinity car on a plate track, or a car that is a very fast track, it's just you have a long day ahead of you. But I felt bad for Mason. His race was practically over before it even began. And the 08 was involved in the 44's crash, so both SS Greenlight cars were just a mess. But I hate being so negative. It's Bobby Dotter's birthday, so happy birthday to the man himself, Bobby Dotter. But, man, it's really sad to see where SS Greenlight Racing's fallen to. We had a couple of minor accidents, but nothing really overly big. We did have the big one. Outside of the big one, I mean, we had the big one, which involved not necessarily a ton of backmarkers. A lot of the backmarkers had some sketchy damage, but nothing really serious. Ryan Sieg, Riley Herbst, Sheldon Creed, Brandon Jones, Anthony Alfredo. Not really backmarker teams were all involved, but teams like Blaine Perkins would later suffer damage from the crash and retire. Kyle Weatherman would bring out another yellow after being involved in that crash and would retire. Akinori Ogata had transmission and fuel cell issues, which kept him behind the wall. Cars like Brennan Poole, Jeffrey Earnhardt were also involved. So they just kind of had to limp around for the rest of the race. Other cars that struggled, the 4 of Garrett Smithley. I mean, this was also kind of an embarrassing performance out of him. I'm glad he finished, but man, I mean, you saw those last 40 laps. I think the 4 car of Smithley literally got lapped twice. His car was so slow by himself. It was kind of amazing how slow the car was. Literally couldn't hang with anyone, and they were just flying past him at Atlanta. It was kind of embarrassing, again, how slow he was. Joe Graff Jr. at one point, I mean, literally at one point, Joe Graff Jr. was running top 5. I look up at my TV screen, Joe Graff Jr. is literally running top 5. I can't believe what I'm seeing. So that was cool to see. Joe Graff Jr. actually running competitive for once. Unfortunately, a fuel problem relegated him to a bad finish. But, of course, as usual, we had our late race caution. NASCAR didn't want to throw it, but eventually they had no choice. The 21 spun himself out, trying to go for the lead. I'm sure you guys, I don't go over the race vividly. Justin Haley didn't go with his teammate in a move that I'm still confused about. He would have had the run of the century, and it looked like Daniel Hemrick was going to cruise to his second win, but he didn't go with his teammate. And the 20 pulled off the upset. I would definitely say they were not expecting to see the 20 win, but John Hunter Nemechek won. And just like usual, Daniel Hemrick is a bridesmaid. One hit wonder is all Daniel Hemrick will ever be. I don't care. I don't care for him. In that last restart, though, we did have some cool guys get some good runs, despite some cars running out of fuel. So we got some good guys getting runs. Kyle Sieg get a 7th-place finish. That was cool to see Kyle Sieg get a 7th-place finish. Josh Williams, after pulling his awesome stunt earlier in the year at Atlanta, he came away with a top 10 finish in 9th, which was also great to see. Jeremy Clemenson 15th. It's a good run for that little team. Josh Bilicki in 18th. Joe Graff Jr. still came home 21st. David Starr was arguably one of the slowest cars on track, but due to his great performance in that last restart, managed to get all the way up to 22nd. Jeffrey Earnhardt was 23rd. Mason Massey was 24th. Ryan Ellis 25th. 26th for Garrett Smithley. 28th for Brennan Poole. 29th for Akinori Ogata. 30th for Mason Maggio. 31st for Kyle Weatherman. 32nd for Blaine Perkins. And 38th for Greg Van Alst. Overall, I did think Atlanta was the weaker of the two races. Cup Series, way more enjoyable. Way more enjoyable than the Xfinity race. Not a bad race, so to say, but again, just Xfinity at this track, I don't know if it's working. Cup Series, fine. But Xfinity, I think they need to run day races where have more handling problems. Obviously, the battles in the Xfinity Series that we've been covering are the top 30 10K bonus. And really, right now, there's still not much of a battle. Even coming out of Atlanta, the last two cars holding those positions are the the 02 of Our Motorsports in 29th and the 43 for Alpha Prime in 30th. 31st is the 6 of JD Motorsports, but they are 30 points behind. And when you consider how close they run to each other every week, that's going to be hard to make up. So it's pretty safe to say that the top 30 10K bonus is pretty much, I don't know, it's pretty much settled. There's not really much we can change about it. I don't see Brennan Poole gaining that many points. So, yeah, like I said, for teams like JD Motorsports, Emerling Gase Motorsports, and SS Greenlight Racing, who both field 2 full-time cars, that extra $20,000 that they're not getting, definitely not helping. Definitely not helping their organizations. The other battle we usually talk about is the top 20 bonus, just like with the Truck Series. The top 20 bonus at the end of the year, which again is for only full-time teams. Right now, the last 2 positions are being held by the 31 of Jordan Anderson Racing and the 26 of Sam Hunt Racing. That battle is not really highly contested right now, as Jeremy Clements Racing in 21st is 26 points behind. But with how close to 51 runs around the 26 and 31, it is definitely still possible. So I would not put that out of the realm of possibility that the 28 or the 51 could get that top 20 bonus at the end of the year. Like I said, now that we're past halfway in the season, we're really going to be talking about these battles every week. This extra purse money, you guys wouldn't believe how much it goes towards Christmas bonuses, buying new parts. I mean, the Xfinity Series had to buy a new rear end housing for the end of the from last year. That's why they did that test session at Charlotte. So now we move on to the big guys, the Cup Series at Atlanta. 37 cars came. We had the 62 of Austin Hill, which they didn't really do much. They didn't really get a chance to get out of the box. They crashed. They were involved in a crash early, which relegated them to a disappointing finish. The Chevrolets really blew it in qualifying. Almost the entire back half of the field was all Chevrolets. Somehow we had one in the top 10, but most were taken up by Fords and Toyotas. The surprising ones of Toyotas, J.J. Yeley getting his best natural qualifying position in a long time, well over 10 years since he's qualified better than 24th. I know he qualified 3rd at Bristol, but that was heat races, not actual qualifying. We had Cole Custer. He was back. Still not sure if this was an SHR car or if this was an actual Rick Ware car, because based on how Cole was running, it actually looked like he was running a full Rick Ware setup, which wouldn't shock me if he was. I mean, in reality, it's a plate type race. There's really no difference between running a Rick Ware car and a Stuart Haas car on a plate track. In reality, there really isn't. Ty Dillon was 27th. BJ was down in 35th. Like I said, he was really struggling with the Chevrolets were really struggling. But luckily, they got it together for the race. Obviously, the race only went 185 laps due to rain, which really sucked because the race was getting so good. It was actually a very, very fun race. We did have some notables crash. We had the 62 and the 5 crash out. Ross Chastain crashed out. 35 cars did end up finishing the race. Some notable incidents that did happen, though. We had Cole Custer was involved in a crash. He would end up getting a broken radiator, which ended his day. Noah Gragson, once again, involved in something that was not his fault and has taken the 42 to yet another disappointing finish. The highlight of this race was the people who stayed out trying to beat the rain, J.J. Yeley. And as many of you people know who've watched this show for a long time, I am one of the biggest J.J. Yeley marks, probably the last J.J. Yeley fan you'll ever find in the sport. I love this guy. I've been a fan of his for over 10 years. Well over 10 years. I've been a fan of J.J. Yeley. I always felt that J.J. Yeley got the shaft at JGR. He wasn't ready. He was brought up way too fast, and way too much was expected out of him in such a short period of time. And unfortunately, it costed him. Not getting the job done in that 18 car, it costed him. So he had to go back down to the lower ranks, and he's built a heck of a career for himself going back up. He has been driving bottom of the barrel equipment. But what he's done, he hasn't crashed it. He's given good feedback, and he's gotten the best run possible out of those cars. And he's become a seasoned veteran. And he ran in the top 10. He did not, for the last 30 laps of that race, did not run out of the top 10, ran as high as 4th. And shout out to Dale Earnhardt Jr. for rightfully giving him a comment. But he was not the only one. At one point during the race with about 30 laps to go, B.J. McLeod, and probably the most aggressive I've ever seen him in a cup race, B.J. McLeod was as high as 10th on the track, going for a top 10 position, leading the outside train. The only problem was nobody would work with him. And that was the same thing that beheld J.J. Yeley. And that's what I hate about the series, man. They don't trust the cars. They don't trust these backmarkers, which sucks. BJ, he can play race. I'm sure he can play race all he wants. Nobody will work with him. J.J. Yeley, one of the most underrated plate racers, but because the drivers behind him are conditioned to not run with Rick Ware, they don't run with him. And it's so frustrating how nobody would work with J.J. Yeley, but yet he would just drive right back up there because he's a great plate racer. So BJ unfortunately fell back through the field, but JJ was right up there the whole time. If somebody would have worked with him, there's no doubt in my mind he could have gotten up there, and I don't say won, but easily a top 5 finish. Unfortunately, right as the race got good, we had that last crash, which wasn't really even a crash. It was just a couple of spinouts. And then we rode under caution for lap after lap after lap after lap after lap after lap after lap before they finally brought him down pit road and called the race 10 minutes later. Very sad and anticlimactic ending to what was a pretty decent race. But the highlight, I don't even care that William Byron's won 4 races this year, and I couldn't care less. Seriously, I don't even know where else he's won at. I've completely forgotten that William Byron's got 4 wins. No idea. I don't care. The highlight of the race was seeing Michael McDowell and J.J. Yeley and Ricky Stenhouse all in the top 10. That was the highlight for me. J.J. Yeley getting his first top 10 finish in 10 years and his best finish in 15 years. So that was the highlight of the race for me. Stenhouse is absolutely, like I said in the chat, he's killing it this year. And I love how some people were telling me Michael McDowell and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. are not underdogs. How? They literally drive for teams that are underdogs. Just because they might not seem like underdog drivers, they're underdog teams. People have no idea how close the 47 team was to shutting down within the last couple years. They've been so close to shutting down. Winning the Daytona 500 this year saved the 47 team from shutting down. So The 51 blew a radiator in a crash. Yeah, Stenhouse is the best thing that ever could have happened to that 47 team. And Michael McDowell, he's still hit or miss, but most of the time he's running good in that 34 car. Ty Dillon got 19th. BJ McLeod, top 20 finish. Love to see it. Like I said, the only real backmarker struggle was Cole Custer in 32nd and Austin Hill in 37th. Yeah, race was okay. I easily give it an 8 out of 10. New Atlanta's really growing on me. I do want to say this. Door Bumper Clear saying that we should have shorter cup races is absolutely the dumbest idea I've ever heard. They're like, well, look at all that action at Atlanta. And they knew the end of the race was coming, so they were all aggressive. I'm like, no, don't put that argument. I've seen this argument out so many times. The last thing we need to do is hurt the credibility of the Cup Series by shortening the races. If we do that, the Cup Series loses credibility, in my personal opinion. This series has to have 400, 500-mile races. We can have a 300-miler from then and there, but 400 to 500-mile races have to stay. This is the elite level. We're supposed to be driving these cars for the longest amount of time. It really shows who's got the best stamina and driving abilities and who has the best pit crew overall. If we shorten these races, we lose credibility. So I think it's just disgusting, in my personal opinion, that the people on Door Bumper Clear would have the balls to put something out like that. Frankly, I don't even know why Door Bumper Clear even exists. All those guys do is love to rant. So I don't know who even watches that show anymore. But the Cup Series owners' points look like this. Sorry, I had to mention it. The whole shorten this races deal that's now been going over Twitter the last couple of days is so stupid. The top 33 charter battle. Man, I tell you, we have a fun battle on our hands, guys. Stewart Haas Racing, 31st. Rick Ware Racing, I believe with their 7th place finish, Rick Ware Racing has solidified themselves inside the top 33 with at least one car this year. The 15 car with its 7th place finish is now 31 points above the cut line. And with how close these guys run to each other every week and with less than half the season to go, I don't see them making up that gap. I think the 15 is safely locked in to the playoffs. The 15 is safely locked into the top 33. The rest is another story. The 51 Rick Ware car is just barely in by 2 points. The Legacy Motor Club 42 car is 34th. The Spire car with its 19th place finish gained. The Legacy Motor Club is out by 2 points. Spire is out by 12. And Live Fast is out by 33. Yes, the 78 will not catch the 42 and the 77. And you know what's funny? The Spire team said that they are not selling their charter. Fine. The 77 team put out a statement saying they're not selling their charter. Our charter is not for sale. Okay, fine. But do something with the car. That's what we're bothered with. Ever since the 77 ever since Spire started to take the series more seriously in 2021, the 77 has been garbage. 2021 with Justin Haley, garbage. 2022 last year with multiple drivers, garbage. 2023 this year with Ty Dillon, garbage. Not the driver's fault. They're putting no effort into the 77 car. It's anything but just a tax write-off is all the 77 is. The 42 of Legacy Motor Club, Jesus Christ. Is Noah Gragson having a horrible year? I mean, his car sucks. I mean, he's overdriving it. You can tell he's overdriving it. He knows he's in a crap car, but you can tell Noah Gragson's just overdriving it every single week. I'm actually starting to feel bad for him. We know he's above this. We know the Legacy Motor Club's probably above this, but the fact that the 42 now has been outside the top 33 now for 4 consecutive races really just tells you how bad this season's going for them. That is so sad. 4 consecutive races outside the top 33. And right now, I want to see this happen. I want to see the NASCAR fans just have an absolute just rage storm If somehow both Rick Ware racing cars can finish inside the top 33 in owner points, and we get 3 more guaranteed years of Rick Ware racing in the Cup Series. I love that. I would love that, and I would love to see the NASCAR fans just blow a gasket. Yeah, Legacy Motor Club obviously banking on that switch to Toyota. It ain't going to do anything. As long as Joe Gibbs is there, they will never be the top team. It might improve their performance a little bit, but Legacy Motor Club will never be anything special. Absolutely will never be. Which I hate saying that because I got some friends who work on that team, but I mean, even they kind of know we're not the best. It will improve their performance, but they ain't going to be winning. They won't be a winning team, probably. But that's just embarrassing. It's got to be so embarrassing for Noah Gragson, knowing the fact that Rick Ware cars are ahead of you in owner points, and the fact that Noah Gragson is one of the lowest full-time drivers in points. So that's just so funny. But yeah, that was Atlanta, Mid-Ohio. Now we transition into the preview portion of our show, which won't take very long. The New Hampshire weekend, this is an off weekend for the Truck Series. So that's kind of fun. We have Xfinity and Cup Series at New Hampshire. It's not one of my favorite tracks on the circuit. It's hit or miss in terms of good racing, but I wouldn't classify New Hampshire as a bad track. It's just not one of my personal favorite tracks, but I think we're in for 2 good races, especially with this wild short track package that supposedly NASCAR is laying out. But for the Xfinity race, one of my favorite race names, the Crayon, the 2023 Crayon or Crayon, or whatever you want to pronounce it, 301 entry list for Cup Series, and the Xfinity Series, the Am Better Health 200. For this race, we have 39 cars for 38 spots. We got 1 car going home. The different entries we have for this race, Kyle Weatherman is back in the 4. Stefan Parsons returns to the 7. Mason Massey looks like he'll be in the 08 for a while. Obviously, Mason's got good money behind him, so I think Mason Massey will be in the 08 for the time being. The 10 was TBA, but it was later announced Austin Dillon will be in that car. Joe Graff Jr. is back in the 19, so expect that car to run expect that car to be underperforming. Patrick Emmerling in the 35, Chris Hacker in the 38. Notable by his absence is Jeffrey Earnhardt, as Raja Caruth and Greg Van Alst are driving the 44 and 45 entries. Yes, Greg Van Alst returning for a second week in a row. Supposedly behind the scenes, Jeffrey Earnhardt is having sponsorship issues. So it does not appear that Jeffrey Earnhardt will be driving for Alpha Prime full-time. And it appears that he might not be appearing at most of the rest of the year, supposedly. So that sucks. That sucks for Jeffrey Earnhardt. I'm an Earnhardt fan. So, yeah. Really kind of sad for Jeffrey. Great to see Raja back, and it's always great to see Greg Van Alst. I didn't know this was a 2-race deal, so great to see Van Alst back. I feel like this is a track where he can really show what he's got, because Atlanta is a plate race. It's a weird animal. So, continuing on, CJ McLaughlin's back in the 53. Oh, joy. Oh, joy. Chad Fincham's in the 66. Dawson Cram's in the 74, of course, and Alex LeBay is in the 91. So 1 car will go home. And I really no, this deal was set up apparently beforehand. This is a really weird qualifying session. Chad Fincham has been so close this year. You look at the races that Chad has attempted for MBM this year. It's not like he's so far off. He's only missing these races by a couple of tenths or even hundredths of a second. And with New Hampshire really being a track that's not all about motor, it's all about getting through the corners and getting off the corners good. I really think the 66 has a chance this weekend. Same thing with the 74. So I'm actually picking both of those cars to make the show, both the 66 and the 74 to make the show. And my DNQ pick is the 53. I don't think CJ makes it. Nope. We know CJ is slow. When he was driving for RSS last year, I mean, he was driving slow for RSS. But now he's in a car that's not fast in general, and he's going so slow in it. I don't think CJ makes the field. I think the 66 and the 74 will make the race. So, and I have to say this, at some point when you're Emerling Gase, when do you say enough is enough? I mean, CJ's crashed 2 cars in practice, whether they're his fault or not. And I think he also had a DNQ. So, and even when he's running, he's not running well. So, I mean, if you're Emerling Gase Motorsports, when do you say enough is enough and just no longer accept the sponsor check? I mean, yeah, and he totaled a car in Daytona. I forgot about that too. He totaled the car in Daytona. So if you're Emerling Gase Motorsports, I would just say cut your losses. At this point, the sponsor check isn't worth it. If you're either going to run bad or you're just going to crash. But I'm predicting the 53 going home. I think the 66 will have enough speed, and I predict the 74 will have more than enough speed because they got 2 good qualifiers. Chad's a good qualifier. We know Dawson is a great qualifier. So that's the DNQ I predict. Last year's race was a demolition derby. I think only about 20 cars finished last year's race. I don't know if we'll have that again. It was one of those weird races we had last year. I think like Jeremy Clements and Brandon Brown finished in the top 5. So it was a weird race last year. If I had to give a prediction for the race, I'm going to go ahead and pick Cole Custer, considering he has a truck win here. Lots of time here in trucks, K&N, and the Cup Series. So I'm going to pick Cole Custer will be my race winning pick. And my dark horse pick for this race will be Josh Berry. It's kind of funny. You talk about low payouts. I don't know if I should reveal this, but I'm going to. From what I was told, New Hampshire is one of the worst paying races of the year. And supposedly, I don't know if this is true, but like top 5 or top 10 level payouts are not even above $25,000. If that's the case, wow, that is garbage. I don't know if that's true or not, but supposedly someone told me that. So, a lot of people predict that Toyota is just going to win this race again, but I actually see Cole Custer getting it done. I think Cole Custer will get it done in this race. But yeah, I guess it wouldn't shock me if we see a Sammy Smith or a John Hunter Nemechek win. I will say, I love Sammy Smith. I'm kind of surprised he's not won a race this year. Kind of predicted the 18 would have been a little bit better. Moving to the Cup race. 36 cars as usual, because why would an open car enter this race? Couple of different stories on the entry list. Ryan Newman and Cole Custer will be the drivers. Oh, yeah, Sammy won Phoenix. That tells you how much I don't even pay attention this year. Sammy Smith has won a race, and I completely forgot. I mean, that tells you how useless he's been this year. I'm sorry. Thanks in the chat for correcting me. I literally completely forgot that Sammy Smith even won a race. I don't know. Is it me, or is this year just not felt the same? I don't know. I literally can't remember people who won races, and I always used to do that. Like I said, Byron's got 4 wins this year, and I couldn't tell you where he's won at besides last weekend. I completely forgot that Sammy Smith won at Phoenix. Thank you for correcting me, chat. But yeah, I don't know. Somehow this year just feels forgetful for some reason, but I apologize for that mistake. Sorry. But, yeah, Ryan Newman and Cole Custer will be in the Rick Ware cars. A very good opportunity race for Rick Ware Racing to gain points. This weekend, having both good drivers in their cars this weekend. I think the 42 is in trouble. I think the 77 is in trouble. We know Ryan's really good at New Hampshire. He's won races there before. So it would not shock me if Ryan Newman gets a top 30 or top 25 finish. Would not shock me. And for Cole Custer, I think Rick Ware is doing the best thing he can to keep his cars inside the top 33. For Noah Gragson, I predict another race of struggling. For same thing with Ty Dillon and same thing for BJ McLeod. Remember in this race last year, BJ McLeod got wiped out on like the 3rd lap. So for BJ, he's just hoping to make more than 3 laps. But yeah, I don't know. It's just not one of my favorite tracks. Hopefully we even get to race. There's a crap load of rain coming again. So, yeah, so it is what it is. It is what it is. Hopefully we get to see some racing this weekend. As you guys know, I will not be watching the Xfinity race live. I'll be at Iowa ARCA on Saturday, but we'll talk more about that on Thursday's show. But it'll be a fun weekend. I just hope MBM makes it. You guys know how much I'm a Carl Long fan, so I hope he makes the show. But, yeah, put the rain tires out. Yeah, let's get the rain tires on. Good grief. Oval track, wet weather racing. One of the dumbest ideas we've ever had in the sport. So, but that's it for me tonight, guys. We're 56 minutes in. When you're all still here, I appreciate you guys as usual for tuning into tonight's show. Yeah, like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on that bell for all notifications so you guys never miss a podcast when we go live. But yeah, guys, thank you again for tuning in tonight. Obviously, Atlanta was fun. Hopefully New Hampshire. Hopefully we'll get to race at all this weekend considering the rain that's coming. But, it is what it is. So, see you on Thursday for the ARCA Racing podcast. And, yeah, we'll catch you all later. So long, guys. Colby Evans, Start and Park Car, signing off on your Tuesday night. Bye, guys.